Everybody, it's Thursday afternoon. Can't believe it's come around so quickly. And on a rainy, thundery afternoon, here we are in the library, and we're going to be talking about, what are we talking about today?
European Week of Languages. And
foreign books.
Books that are not written in English, but have been translated into English. Okay? It might interest you to know that not every single book in the world is translated into English. There are some authors that are very, very famous in their own countries, but are not translated. Or haven't found the translator of their choice, oddly enough. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, because it's been Modern Foreign Languages Week, hasn't it? Okay. What's been happening? Oh, we have a booker shortlist.
We do. I haven't ordered the books. I have ordered them.
We
Books
haven't
arrived
got
yet.
the books yet, but much excitement because every single person on the shortlist is a woman. Interestingly enough, bar one. And somebody, interestingly, a Dutch woman. No, they're all women.
No, there was Percival Everett was on there.
Oh, okay.
He's the only man. Then it's all women.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Miss Huntley, to
Okay.
burst your bubble there.
There's a Dutch person writing in English, interestingly. Anyway, so lots been happening. So let's make a start. We're each going to talk about something that we like that has been translated. Or we might even have read in the original, possibly. Anyway, Annabelle, do you want to start? And welcome back.
Yes, welcome back, Annabelle. Good to have you back.
Yes.
So I've got Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata, I think.
Uh-huh.
I think that's how you say it.
And what's the original language?
It's Japanese, but it was translated. And I think it's a really good book because it's quite, like, quirky. But I think it's really nice. It's, like, the basic gist of the story is, like, a woman who works in a convenience store but finds joy in all the little things. And, like, but then her friend tries to, like, put her out there into, like making friends, like, stuff like that, and just getting more into life.
So coming out of the store and...
Yeah, and just, like, opening up to new opportunities.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting, but it's also funny, and it's just, I think it's a really nice read. So...
Okay.
Has anyone read Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine? Yes, yeah. So you know the story. So it's a bit like that.
Oh right, okay.
It's very reminiscent of that, but it's a lot shorter. And it's more surreal because it's got elements of sci-fi. Is that fair to say with it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Sorry. No, you first.
how did you come across it then?
I think my mum recommended it to me because we just had it in the house.
Yeah.
And she said this one's funny.
It is.
And, like...
Yeah, so she did another book called Earthlings as well, which is about, imagine aliens. So this is where the sci-fi comes in. But yeah, she's very quirky, a little bit like Murakami, but lighter, bit more lighter touch. So yeah, what would you say is your favourite thing? What are some of your favourite things about this book? Was it like the writing style,
I think I like the idea of it.
the concept?
Yeah, and I think it was quite nice because it shows, like, nothing really big has to happen for, like, it to be
a story.
a story. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you can find joy in all the little things.
Year 11, take note. The story's written for creative writing. Nothing much has to happen. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Annabelle. That's great. Good one.
Thank you.
So Japanese starting us off. Okay, Lucy, do you want to go next?
Okay.
Yeah.
Me too.
So we're moving
Tigo.
across, coming westwards to France.
Okay, so I have Madeline. They can't see it from here because it's
No.
tiny.
Okay, and who's Madeleine by?
Madeline's by Ludwig Bellemans.
That's right, Ludwig Bellemans.
Mentioned them last week in
Yeah.
the quiz.
Alright, so it's 80 years old.
Yes. Yes.
That's really old. So it's from D-Day.
Before D-Day, actually.
Before?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Huh. That's interesting. So,
And what do you like about Madeleine?
I like that it's from little girl's point of view. I also just generally like it.
The atmosphere?
Yeah, I like how it's set in Paris.
And she goes to a school, doesn't she, run by... Is it a convent?
I think so.
Yes. Yeah.
Nuns, I think.
Nuns, yes. Yeah.
You can tell that kind of from a picture.
Stories,
yeah.
but are they quite short? Because they're quite big format books, aren't they? Or they used to be. Maybe you didn't have big format, but...
I don't know. I mean, when I read it, it was a year ago I read it now. I read it in French.
Oh, you read it in French?
Yeah.
Good.
Because, well, I can read a lot of French, so... I think...
and do they have adventures, or is it just set around school?
I don't know. I think it's a bit out of school sometimes.
Right, okay.
I have seen the movie as well. I'm pretty sure there is a movie. And I'm pretty sure I remember something about a bridge, and so I think that's going to be outside of school.
Okay.
Also, on the front cover, they have a Eiffel Tower, so
yeah.
I doubt they just haven't. I doubt they have a road to the Eiffel Tower from their school.
Okay. Anybody else come across Madeleine before?
I've seen the movie.
Yeah. Rita?
I saw the trailer for the movie, and when I went to Paris, there was like the setup at the time with like a big version of the book, and you could go inside and take pictures.
Oh, wow.
That sounds cool.
Oh, that's nice.
That does sound
fun.
cool.
Yeah. I've got a friend whose daughter is now a published author, and she loved Madeleine as a little girl. So that would have been 20 odd years ago. But yes, she really liked them. Yeah. He's written something else, hasn't he? Not just Madeleine, I think.
I'm sure you're right, but I'm not sure.
Is it Bertelmann's? Yes, he was actually, funny enough, he was actually Austrian.
Oh.
Yeah.
I read it in French.
His first language, because he grew up in Upper Austria, his first language was French, his second German.
Well, still on theme.
And he went to live in the United States. But Madeleine is his most famous.
Yeah.
Would you say it's a book that can be read by quite a wide audience?
Yeah, it definitely says so on here.
But what do you think?
Well, I do think so too. I agree with it.
So would you say all of us could read it?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, as in, all ages?
Yeah, I don't think it's a book that's kind of confined by just little children because of the style of the writing. Yeah.
Okay, good.
There are 6 Madeleine books, and in an old house in Paris that was covered with vines lived 12 little girls in 2 straight lines. The smallest one was Madeleine. The girls are cared for by Miss Clavel. Do you know that this is a bit of an in-joke? Did you know that?
No.
There's a very famous French writer called Proust, and he wrote 12 volumes of autobiography. And
In Search of Lost Time.
In Search of Lost Times, Remembrance of Remembrance of Things Past.
Yeah.
And one of the things that starts the first book is he eats a Madeleine and he remembers his past, his childhood. So Madeleine, the little French cakes.
Oh, I haven't heard of one of those.
You've not had a Madeleine?
They were little.
I probably have eaten one. I just don't remember the names.
Maman
the
makes
cakes.
them.
They
Those
look like
ones.
boats.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a little bit of a sort of allusion to Proust, which most people have not read.
And most people never will.
I mean,
Yes.
12 volumes.
Yeah, 12 volumes.
I think Proust
Quite
is
a lot.
Proust is something else.
Yeah.
In terms of he can spend like 3 pages describing a petal on a flower.
Oh,
I'm not exaggerating.
Hotel Splendide. Now that used to be published in Penguin, and they once upon a time when they did the first mugs. Who's got the Penguin mug today?
I've
Who's
got
a Penguin
one.
mug?
I've got one.
Oh, you've got them. Yeah.
Ah.
One of the first ones was Hotel Splendide,
Oh, right. Okay.
and when Natalia, who was in the Spanish department, left, I gave it to her because she was going off to Geneva to run a bed and breakfast.
Oh, wow.
Hotel Splendide seemed appropriate.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yes. Gosh, he wrote a lot. Wow. Yeah. Right. So there's school stories, but adventures outside Paris as well.
Yeah.
So, and good for one's French.
Yeah. I did read it in French too.
Oh, brilliant. That's really good. Thank you very much. That's great. Okay. Ria, do you want to go next?
I don't really have a book.
All right. Okay. Josie? Yeah?
Slightly different change of tone because I've chosen All Is Quiet on the Western Front.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah, I think...
From the German, yes?
Yeah. Well, for those of you who haven't read it, it's set in the First World War, in the trenches, but I think, unusually to, I think, quite a lot of what we're exposed to from the World War, it's from the German perspective. And it was written shortly after the war by someone who fought in it. And, well, I think it's interesting as a book, but also interesting as, like, a piece of work straight after the war in Germany, just because of how it was, like, the best-selling book as soon as it came out in Germany, which kind of shows a lot of, like, opinion at the time, and how there was an immediate thing of how horrible the war had been, and I think especially for Germany with all the terms of the Treaty of Versailles, you immediately can see that almost through this book. But I'd say the book itself is very sad, but it definitely, I'm not sure how much of a reminder we need, but it's definitely a reminder of truly how horrible war is.
Yes, and how it solves nothing
yeah.
at all. And they're very young, aren't they? The boys
Yeah.
are very young.
I think it's, like, as you see, like, the shift from the beginning, how hopeful they are, and how excited they are, and how quickly that's all crushed.
And how they get influenced to go, don't they?
Yeah, as you said, I think we are more familiar with the British perspective, but it's just to show that it's exactly the same, Jamie, with the... Because I think we all know when they signed up for war, they'd all go in groups, and they were exciting. It's a jolly good adventure. It was exactly the same in Germany. They did exactly the same thing, and so in this book, they are all young and full of hope, and then they get gradually disillusioned. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And it's been very influential as a film as well, because the first film was actually a German version, I think. In fact, the last version was a German. Was it German version?
The one that's on Netflix is German.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was released a couple of years ago, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Worth watching. Got Netflix.
Worth watching. Yeah. How did you come across it?
I read it when we did the War Novel project initially in Year 9. Yeah.
It was given to you?
Yeah.
You didn't pick it out?
No, because we got randomly assigned, but...
Yes. Well, they weren't randomly assigned. Whoever was teaching you was a deliberate choice.
Yeah.
So,
Well, Mr. Sarden.
Yeah. So we think long and hard about what we give everybody. So, yeah. Oh, good. Thank you very much, Leslie. That's great. So, German. Okay. Frida, do you want to go next?
Yes,
Yeah.
I didn't have the book with me today, but the book I wanted to talk about was Anne Frank's diary. It's very popular. I got one where it's like half of like the same page, half is in Dutch and then half is in English. So I tried to read across the both. It was interesting to read as a book to see, because from the age I started reading it, which was like last year, me and Anne were around the same age. It was crazy to think that a girl at my age could be in such a position as that. And it definitely pulled some heartstrings when things started getting taken away from her, and her expression of longing for her pets and the outside world.
Yes. Yeah, because they can only look out, can't they? They can't. They have to be very quiet and hiding away.
And it must be very scary to kind of be forced into hiding. It's not like playing hide and seek where you're giggling about it. It's more like you want to stay quiet because your life depends on it.
Yeah. Have you been to the Netherlands?
No, I haven't been to the Netherlands. The copy I got was from my aunt who went to Amsterdam, and she got it from the Anne Frank Museum.
Oh, yes.
It was interesting because there was also like notes at the end, and it was also crazy to think that some names weren't there and they just put initials because the people that the names belonged to didn't want their names to be said. So people are like scared of people still finding them out. When the book was published, they still couldn't find a way to feel safe. And just looking into that also made me like just stop and think for a moment what happened.
Yes, it's a reminder, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. And you read the whole thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, well done.
I cried at some point,
Yeah,
definitely.
Of course.
Yeah.
A lot of you must have read it as well, surely, right?
I read an extract in a comprehension.
Okay.
Like, I read the whole thing.
Has anyone read the whole thing? Anyone else read the whole thing? Ria?
It's well worth it.
It's a
well
great
worth
book.
reading the
It's
whole
a
thing.
really famous book, so everyone that I've ever known like has heard of it at least, or read something from it.
Paris?
I read the graphic novel version of
Uh-huh.
Was it good?
it. It was
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course there's Meep's story now as well. They've done that as a film, haven't they?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm.
So the other side, you have the person who helped them hide.
There was I think there was even a film on Netflix like Anne Frank's Best Friend or something like that.
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is. Yeah. It's a really poignant story. When I went to Amsterdam, I couldn't get into the house at all. It was just booked up, completely booked up. It was sad.
Yeah.
Go back one day.
And just an extraordinary writer.
Even
really,
the view
Anne
from the
Frank.
outside, it's crazy to think.
Yeah, it is absolutely extraordinary.
It looks like a normal house.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yes.
Well, it was in a sense, but yeah.
Yes, because I mean, Dutch houses tend to be tall and thin, and of course they were lucky because they had this secret annex, and
Yeah.
they were, they had. Without, we would have had the diary. There would have been a diary, but not quite the same, or perhaps as inspiring. It's just sometimes out of war comes things that are much more hopeful.
She writes in such a way you would imagine a girl at 11 would write, telling the diary her crushes, her admirers, and then it quickly shifts to her beginning to understand the seriousness of the whole situation.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right.
Thank
Very
you.
much.
Thank you.
So, Phoebe, Esther, one of you want to go next?
Esther?
Yeah?
I don't have the book with me. We
No, that's
have a
all right.
French
That's all right.
copy at home.
No, don't worry if you don't have the book with you,
Don't
folks.
worry.
Okay, it's fine.
But I've taken my iPad with me because I want to pronounce the name correctly. So I'm going to speak about Le Petit Prince, which was written by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry.
Exupéry.
Okay.
Who wrote
Yeah.
The Little Prince?
The Little Prince.
Yes.
And it was published posthumously, and what's also really interesting is it was banned by the Vichy regime, but it's a really, really nice story. I read it when I was like really young, I can't remember, but we have a copy, a French copy at home, and as it says, it's about a prince and he travels around like these different planets, and I have this like memory of like, I think it must have been at the start, but there's like this drawing of like a elephant inside a snake, and all the adults think it's a hat.
Adults.
Yeah. And yeah, it's a really nice story, and I feel like it can be read by like both children and adults, because it's also like making a lot of observations about the world, and about, you know, like friendships and love and loss. And so yeah, I've also we have the film at home, which is in both French and English, and it's also really nice.
He wrote. He was a flyer.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he wrote a really famous. For those who are interested in flight.
Yeah.
He's an author to read.
Isn't Le Petit Prince the second most translated book in the world?
Yeah.
The first one being the Bible.
Yeah. If you go to, if you wait for the train at the Gare du Nord, there's loads, you know, that's Petit Princes all over the place. Yeah.
The illustrations are also really nice.
Yeah, they're great. Aren't they? Yeah. Oh, good. Thank you very much. Lovely. So that's for France. Holly, do you want to come talk to us about language and linguistics? That'd be good. Because that's our theme. Hello, Katie.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, thanks.
Nice to see you.
Okay.
Okay, right.
So-
Tell us what you're going to tell us about language, linguistics, and all things like that. 'Cause this is Languages Week.
So these books weren't translated from another language, but they're both like about languages in general. So this first one is Babel Around the World in 20 Languages by Gaston Doran, which basically, so they're both non-fiction, sorry. This one just goes through the 20 most spoken languages in the world and just kind of gives you like little bits of information about each of them differently, and it's really good because it goes into like very different aspects of each of the different languages. So on some of them it's talking about like the sound of the language and like why that works like differently in that language versus other ones. Some of them it's talking about the history of the language, you know, like how it came to be and why it's like viewed how it is, that kind of thing. Some of it's about the writing. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting.
So what's the most spoken language in the world?
Um,
What does he think?
So this includes second language speakers, so English,
Yeah.
and then Mandarin, and then Spanish, according to this
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And the 20th?
book. Vietnamese,
Vietnamese.
yes.
Because of the diaspora, I guess.
I don't remember, but
Oh,
yeah, maybe.
Interesting.
So yeah, that was really good. Yeah, if you're interested in like anything to do with language, like the history or like anything else, it's really good because it goes into those different aspects of each of them. Then this one is less like it is non-fiction, but it's kind of like a picture book, so it's like kind of like that.
Oh, right.
It's
What's it
called Lost in Translation by Ella Francis Saunders.
Yeah.
And so it's basically just each page is a word, and like kind of the closest like translation you could get in English, along with the like original language it was from, and some little pictures, which is just, yeah, it's really cute. It's really short because, you know, each one
Do you want to
has...
pick out a word to talk to us about or to read about?
I don't...
No?
Anyone you like, really.
Anyone, we don't mind.
It could be, even if you think we already know it, that's fine as well.
I don't remember.
No?
No.
Okay.
But yeah, that was cute as well.
Lovely.
So.
Thank you very much.
All right, okay, thanks.
So, how languages, history of language, how they came to be. Lucy, would you like to go next?
I'm
Or
just
not?
listening today.
No, okay, alright. Katie, come on then. Come on down.
Yay! That's it. Love that. Love that. Oh,
Oh, right.
oh, she's
okay.
going to get it. Should we have someone else while we're waiting? Maybe then.
Phoebe, do you want to come whilst you're waiting or not?
I would have done the
Oh, you would have done. Okay.
That's okay. She's coming back. She's coming back. Oh yes, I remember you borrowing this recently.
I told Mr. Humphreys about this because I really liked it.
Yes, you did.
The Good Woman of China by Shinran.
Oh.
She's a British Chinese reporter, and in until she was I don't know, 40 or so, she lived in China as a journalist, and she ran a podcast documenting Chinese women and their experiences. And this book is basically 20 stories that she reported on that podcast.
Oh, interesting.
And it's really good. It's non-fiction. And it's really traumatizing. All those because China is kind of the women are kind of they were much more oppressed. Yeah, they kind of had a rough time. And she was documenting from until 1990 or something. And there's just all these stories about these horrible lives that these women lead, and then also really hopeful ones.
Yeah.
And it's really good. I would recommend it to anyone. It is a bit it's a bit depressing, yeah, if you're not ready for that.
Did you listen to the podcast as well, or just
no, it was
Oh, the podcast is in Chinese.
Yeah, it's in Chinese.
Right.
Originally in Chinese.
Right.
And yeah, it was broadcasting. I don't even actually know if it's online. I never looked, but it probably is. But yeah, I don't speak Chinese, so. But yeah, the book's really good. I read it on holiday. It was just it was really insightful into the lives of the people that you never really experience yourself, because from Britain.
From a range of classes across China, or
Yeah,
range of places
there's
across China?
There's some people who are the sons, their son is a wealthy CEO or owner. They're from Beijing, from big cities. And then there's this one story about these people that are a very small tribe. This was in 1980 as well. They're this very small tribe, and they live in the mountains, and they barely have any water, barely have any food. And they live very rudimentary lives. All the women are just gotten pregnant, they don't have any new anything.
Yeah.
And it really stuck with me. She was she interviewed all of them, and when she asked them are you happy, all the women, all of them said no, except for the people living the rudimentary lives. And it was yeah, I was damn, made me think.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. Rory Stewart, the ex-MP, ex-Minister of State, he's done a podcast called Ignorance, the Lost Art of Ignorance, and he's talking about how, and before going to university, he did a lot of walking to find things out, and he walked across Afghanistan and Iraq and Iran, which then therefore led to his future career. When after the Iraq War, he went in and ran a bit of Iraq. Anyway, he was saying that the people he found the happiest were people who had no knowledge of the outside world at all, who just lived from day to day their own.
It's you can't mourn what you've never had.
Well,
Precisely.
This is the thing. I mean, you can aspire, but he said that they were just happier. Yeah,
it's very interesting.
Yeah,
read it, guys. It's only got 3 taken out since 2010.
Wow.
Read it. I'm the third.
Quality control, it might only be taken out 3 times, but it's an important book to have here.
Yeah.
For all the reasons Katie's just said.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a thread actually, because there are, lots of Chinese women do write about Chinese, their experiences with others and what have you, but not. Have you read Wild Swans?
What's that?
Young Chang.
That's Young Chang, and that was revolutionary when it came out, because it's about her grandmother and her mother, and of course it came out in the 90s, didn't it?
Yes,
so
it is.
Her grandmother had her feet bound.
Yeah,
that's quite common.
But her parents went through the Cultural Revolution and all that hideousness, and then she had to leave China to make a life elsewhere, which is sort of...
Yeah, this book only got published once she moved to Britain.
Exactly.
Because in China, being a journalist was very limited, especially in the 1980s.
she was very like tampered down on what she was allowed to say.
Yeah. Frida?
What age range would you say this book is for?
Perhaps you have to wait a couple of years.
Yeah, I would say probably like...
If you want to read something similar,
Chinese
Cinderella.
Oh, I read that.
You read that?
Yeah, I think this would be like 15 and up, I would reckon, because it does get very dark.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't really want to like expose people to that, you know.
We've also got Chinglish. Chinglish is
Yes, that's a
another
good
book
one.
about Chinese, but the Chinese experience here.
It's fiction.
Fiction.
And it's essentially growing up in the 1980s, I believe, as a daughter who works in a
worth
takeaway.
reading.
And we have a non-fiction account called Takeaway, incidentally, that was released more recently about in Wales.
In Wales,
a Chinese girl growing up in Wales, in the valleys in Wales. Again, daughter of someone who went to Takeaway. And their experiences, very illuminating.
There was
Very
a story in here where there was like this girl was studying in Britain, like SOAS in London, and like because like people study Chinese there, like people could understand her, and she was asking like Shinran, who was working there, like about relationships and about like sex and stuff, and she like didn't know at all because she was like from China. They didn't teach her like at all.
Yeah.
And like all the other people, they like the people listening in were like laughing at her, and Shinran was like, no, but they just don't know, they just weren't told. And I was like, damn. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. We're lucky, aren't we?
Yeah. It's very like eye opening when you read about like way less fortunate people than you, and you're like, damn, I'm just here like in my middle class British life.
Absolutely. We're very privileged. We're lucky. We are lucky.
That's
Because
why
we do have a window on the world, even if it's quite sometimes it feels narrow. Yeah.
So
Cool.
yeah,
Thank you, Kate.
absolutely great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Okay. Samira, would you like to?
I'm just
no?
listening.
Okay, that's fine. All right. Anybody else? Anybody else got anything to?
No.
No?
Guess it's the adults then.
I guess it's the two of us. Right. Do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'll go if you like. Yeah. So I've done a last minute pivot because the book I was going to talk about is actually not a literature in translation. I didn't realise that was the criteria. So I just last minute, you probably saw me hurriedly getting another book, and then going to get my iPad, and then my iPad. Well, I'm going to talk about this anyway.
Oh, you're going to talk about it anyway.
Yeah, because it's a good one. Of course it is. And I can get my iPad to work. Because I want to play you a video, but my iPad wasn't connected to the internet, so I'm going to play it on my phone instead.
Okay.
This is a memory from my childhood. If it's going to work.
Do you want me to put it on mine?
No, there you go. Oh, you okay? Don't hurt yourself. Don't hurt yourself straining to see this. It's not that good.
Is this the Musketeers?
That looks like my dog with a haircut.
It's quite a long intro, this. I won't play it all. I'll stop it in a sec. Oh yeah, I'll stop it there. But yeah, who said it was cheesy? You're absolutely right.
One for all. Where does that come from? Oh no!
Come on, guys. Come on, guys.
Come on.
All right. Well, this is how I got into this book, and someone said it's cheesy. Yes, it's very cheesy because it's from the 80s, 90s when I was a child. From a show called Dogtanian, and the Three Muskehounds, and that's how I first got. That was my first exposure to the Three Musketeers, which is where it's written on the back here. Now, gentlemen, it's one for all and all for one. That's our motto, and I think we should stick to it. And yeah, that was just a great show. It was very much always time, but I just love it. And bringing back the memories, and you all seem to get quite excited at the very 80s theme tune. So,
always being remade. remade, isn't it?
Always been remade. There's so many adaptations. Has anyone
Yeah.
seen any adaptations at all of The Three Musketeers?
I probably have. I just don't remember them.
Like the Puss in Boots version.
They did a Puss in Boots version?
I think I have.
Well, as in the Puss in Boots from Shrek? Or...
Puss in Boots in Shrek, he is a bit like a mouse. He is a bit like a musketeer, but it's the same sort of period. But he's not actually a musketeer. There are actually 4.
Eventually.
So we've got we've got.
Let's see if you know them.
All right.
Do you actually know
their
them?
names?
No one begins with a D.
Well, yeah, there's D'Artagnan. He's already started out. He starts out as an apprentice. He's not a musketeer initially.
He comes from Gascony. He
Yes.
has a Gascon accent and a very bad horse.
So, and then there's the Three Musketeers, who are... You obviously don't know them, so there's Porthos,
Aramis,
and Athos.
and Athos.
No? Yeah, those are the names of the Three Musketeers. So, yeah, essentially, it's the Musketeers are the bodyguards of the king, who is Louis the 18th? 13th.
No.
13th. Yeah.
This is pre,
Yeah, a lot of Louis.
I'm reading the blurb. It's King Louis the 13th. And
pre the revolution.
Oh yeah, way before the revolution. And yeah, so they're the bodyguard of King Louis the 13th. And essentially, it's just a swashbuckling tale with great villains, Cardinal Richelieu and Milady, who is English, a nice English villainess. And yeah, they essentially are foiling their plots. Now, Milady is a great character. Milady is probably one of the first great female villains of all time. And yeah, so it's much more than a straightforward adventure story, though. It's full of, you can see it's quite a detailed book. It's full of great historicalism. That's a word. Now, he also wrote a book called The Count of Monte Cristo. Has anyone heard of that one?
Oh, that's
okay.
the version that was on the cinema last week.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. So there's another one. So yeah, those are his 2 great works. Now, you all know The Count of Monte Cristo. Anyone care to give a quick summary of the story there? What happens with that one?
Nuala would if she was here.
Sorry?
Nuala would if
Nuala if
she
she
was
would.
here. She'd be really excited.
Okay. Well, Nuala isn't here, so anyone else want to...
It's funny, the age that you read Musketeer.
Oh, I read this when I was sort of in my teens.
Yeah, I read Count of Monte Cristo.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's a good way into classical literature, really, because they're exciting stories. Count of Monte Cristo is
Count of Monte
huge.
Cristo is sort of mad.
Yeah.
It's completely mad. There's all sorts of disguises. It's a bit like, I reckon, Baroness Orczy based a lot of Scala Pimpernel on Count of Monte Cristo. There's disguises and
if you know
doing right.
If you know the Scarlet Pimpernel is someone who rescued. No, they went okay. Yeah. So, but yeah, you must have all heard of the Three Musketeers at least. And yeah, the book is definitely worth reading because it's very fast paced, very exciting, lots of excitement, great characters, lots of espionage, intrigue. A bit of romance as well. I can't remember the name of the D'Artagnan's love interest. But yeah, it is also...
to a baker, isn't she?
Yes. Peasant girl as well.
Yes.
And yeah, it's a coming-of-age story because he is a young man. He is in his teens, I think, at the start. And yeah, it's all about learning for him to come of age and learn to be a musketeer in the service of the king, as we heard in the theme tune there.
It's quite emotional, isn't it? Because they go off to fight in the Fronde, the religious wars, don't they?
Yes.
And then Cyrano picks up on that same
Cyrano de
war.
Bergerac, yeah. So yeah, lots of a variety of literary influences and cultures. So yeah, so I just thought I'd mention the Three Musketeers. I was going to talk about this. Anyone heard of Sally Gardner at all? So this is called Tinder. Now, does anyone? You've all heard of Hans Christian Andersen? Yes, the fairy tales of Hans Christian Andersen. Anyone familiar with the Tinder box?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, can you remember what the basic story is there of the Tinder box? No? So essentially, I mean, it's a bit crazy actually. It's one of his wildest stories, but essentially a soldier meets a witch who tells him to go inside a tree and he can help himself to these 3 chests. One is gold, one is silver, one is something else. And all she asks him to do is to retrieve a tinder box for her. But when he does, as well as all the treasure, he wants to know why, and she doesn't tell him, so he cuts her head off, and then he takes away the tinder box, and the tinder box ends up being a sort of like a magic lamp. So there's a bit of Tales of Arabian Nights there influence. What Sally Gardner does in Tinder, she sets it in the 30 Years' War, which was a terrible, terrible war. One of the worst wars ever. I think Germany lost 50% of its population, just to give you an idea of how awful that war was. And the protagonist is a soldier called Otto in this, and he comes across the tinderbox in a much darker way. I mean, the pictures, the cover there. So there's dogs in the tinderbox who play a big part. Yeah. It's wolves in this, because Sally Gardner just wants to increase the stakes. Yeah. And he essentially, it runs along similar lines. His main goal is to meet his lost love. There is a love interest in the tinderbox, but the love interest in this is introduced much earlier. He wants to get together with her, but he's a soldier in the middle of the war, so lots of things are standing in his way. But it's what keeps him going in this horrible, horrible world of nightmare. So there you go. There's a nice moment of tenderness. That's him searching for his love. But then, just to give you an idea, I've shown you the picture of the wolf. He has to deal with places like this, and he has to deal with horrible people like that, and he has to encounter, and I showed the picture that I showed Miss Huntley earlier.
Yes.
He has to deal with creatures like this.
They almost look cute.
What if I just turn the page? Do they look cute now?
No.
You wouldn't want to meet them on a dark night now, would you?
So it doesn't pull its punches, but it's also got hope, and even in the darkest of times, love wins all.
Jamira?
Yes.
What would you say the age recommendation is?
Not year 7, and probably not for those who don't want to have, who perhaps don't like, if you have nightmares after watching horror movies, probably not for you. But it's really good, though. It's really good. Sally Gardner is a very talented author.
Something to think about for later.
Yeah, but I know that a lot of you like dark stuff as well, so that's why I thought I'd mention that one. There you go. So there you go. So that's me. Right. Thank you.
Right, I will finish off then. Okay, I'm going to speak about a book that's sitting on my shelves at home by a Polish author who looks like that.
Hello, Ria.
And her name is Olga Tokarczuk. My mother will be
Hello,
telling
Miss
me.
Sally.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, hi, Derek. Who will be telling me, you don't know, you can't pronounce your Polish. Anyway, this book was written in 2009, but I came across it because Fitzcarraldo, who are quite a small publishing firm, but they publish translations in very dark blue covers with white titles. And this book is called Drive Your Plough Over the Bones of the Dead, which, if you're in Europe, anywhere in Europe really, pretty much is what's going on. If you're in France or northern France, First World War, farmers have to be very careful, because not only are they likely to bring up dead bodies, but also the iron harvest, the shells and bullets and things that are still sort of buried there. Indeed, there are so many that they have a section of the Belgian and French army that look after them, take them away and blow them up, as it were. So this is actually one of many of her books, but I really like this. It's a sort of crime story, but it's not a conventional whodunit. It becomes a sort of social satire. When she wrote it, Poland was doing okay. It was part of the European Union, but it went through a very bad period, which it's just emerging from, where the right took over and started to take back all sorts of rights that people had acquired. And basically, this is set in southwestern Poland, and the main character shares the name of my mother, Janina Zeckel. She's in her 60s, but she's living in the rural area. She's very into astrology, and she's also very into the poetry of William Blake, oddly. But around her, various people in a hunting club are dying. Now, hunting in our country you're either on horseback and you're going after foxes, which is illegal now, or you're a farmer and going out and, blasting away, or we don't really have a hunting culture in the same way that Europe does. Anyway, these members of this hunting club seem to be being caused by animals taking their revenge. It takes a while, but emerges that actually it's not that at all. But it's kept for a long time as to who it is, and I found it absolutely hilarious because she winds up the police no end. She keeps visiting them. She goes to visit them in the dead of winter, and takes her a long time to get there. And they say, "Well, it can't possibly be that animals, can it?" And she says, "Well, it looks like the animals, you better come along and have a look." Anyway, it takes a while, but eventually it's solved. But it really is brilliant. I loved it. And there are other books that she's written. Anyway, in 2018, she was given the Nobel Prize for her body of work. And she runs a literary festival in Poland. She's friends with Anisha Holland, who is a very famous Polish director, and in fact they've made a film of this called Spur, although I've not seen it. She's well worth seeking out, and she's this character is just so funny. She sort of exists by looking after the holiday homes of the people who live in the village but around her, and keeping an eye on them. But she's and she has this friend who they exchange delight of the poetry of William Blake. So really enjoy that as well.
Is it set in Warsaw? Or?
No, it's set in rural Poland.
Rural Poland.
Very near the border with Slovenia.
Okay.
In fact, it's so near that you can practically, stray into it.
Right.
Yes, and it was shortlisted for the Man Booker International Prize in 2019. So, and she's a Royal Society of Literature international writer. So, and still publishing, which is really good.
Yeah, she's got a lot going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say.
Yeah. And something else that came up this week, interestingly, is that a library that has only been available to academics is now open to visits, called the Warburg Institute, which is in London, near the University of London. And we discovered, didn't we, through an article in the Guardian this week, that inside this library is another library, and it's called the Library of Exile, which was a long time ago, just after I saw it just after the pandemic was over. A library that was put together by Edmund de Waal, and it's called the Library of Exile, and the Library of Exile is filled with books that are translated by people who perhaps were exiled from their homeland, like Andrei Kirchhoff, for example, who is a Ukrainian writer who does write in Russian but can't go back to the part of Ukraine that he grew up in because, of course, now it's occupied by the Russians. People like Bulgakov, who was wrote a satire about Stalin and risked his life to do that. And also it's remembering libraries that have been lost. So, for example, the library in Sarajevo, which was destroyed during the Civil War, the library in Iraq, in Afghanistan, the lost library of Alexandria, which was burnt down long ago. And Edmund de Waal wrote a very famous book called The Hare with Amber Eyes, which is the story of a group of Netsuke carvings that belonged to his family. But out of that came a story about his family who had to leave Vienna because they were Jewish. They've made a life here. He's a very famous potter, ceramicist, but he's also now the judge of this year's Booker Prize. And the Library of Exile, which was basically that's what it looked like in the British Museum. You could go in and you could have a look at the texts, and you could write down your own favourite books in translation as well. It was a very, very peaceful place, and they've put it into this library, the Warburg Institute. So we thought we might have a trip there later in the summer. And in here there are articles by Elif Shafak, who of course we know well, and Hartwig Fischer. And Hartwig Fischer was the director of the British Museum at the time this was created. Not there now, but it was a very special exhibition, and it's lovely to know that it's back at the Warburg Institute now as well. So we've ranged around the globe from Japan to back to Europe, and then on to Poland, and now other things as well. So thank you everybody for your contributions, and we will say au revoir, arrivederci, until next week. When it is
National Poetry Day.
Oh, National Poetry Day, yes. So we'll be doing activities to do with poetry, and there will be a celebration in the quad at lunchtime as ever. So thank you, everybody. Lovely to see you all. Okay. Thanks for coming.
Bye. 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 Bye.